Welcome to my biggest build ever. This is huge. As you can see, this is taking so much space. If you look at my whole city, this one build is taking all of this, the equivalent of 3 or 4, boats and full boats, right? This is nuclear. As you can see there, this is the fast breeder reactor, but end game style, right? Well organized, working at full speed, etc. And this is enough for 6 of them. I have 3 right now built, 3 not built, but we're gonna be able to have 6 of them with this. And not only this is supporting obviously a ton of electricity, you can see it over here, but this is also doing 2 other things. One, it is also creating a ton amount of hydrogen and oxygen, which means we're gonna be able to stop, my oxygen production. For example, over here, right, we used to have quite a bit of air separators for the steel here. We also need oxygen many other places, so we're gonna be able to stop those air separators for oxygen. And most importantly, we're now creating tons of hydrogen that we can use in many places, but most importantly in the one that I mentioned at the end of the last episode, which is to transform all of our ships into hydrogen ships. Instead of diesel, they are all hydrogen now. You can see this one here. Now, how do you do this? I should have maybe kept one, or maybe let's just build one. I don't know if I build a new one, if now they're gonna build it directly hydrogen or not. So I'm just going to put it here. I've been extending this piece over here to have a bit more space. So we need to build it, and we need some concrete slab, which is my one problem right now. Look at this, we have lots of great reserves. The only problem are those those concrete slab, because it is actually the one production that we haven't really done in end game style. Okay, so I need 400, so we're just gonna buy a bunch. Done. Build this. Gonna take a second so I can show you exactly how. But in the meantime, let me show you that indeed, hydrogen, the only one that is still on the diesel is actually the crude oil one, the diesel one. We're gonna talk about this one in a second. But bauxite over here, titanium, this is uranium. The old uranium over here has been moved, now it is there. We have the slag, right? This is also on hydrogen, and you can see hydrogen storages everywhere, hydrogen. So they're going to consume a lot of hydrogen, right? We're talking about almost 500 for a single journey with low speed. So I need to build a lot. Obviously, it's not like they're going to consume this every minute. This one, for example, is taking 6 months to make a single journey, and this is actually even excluded the time that it takes to unload and load. So, it's gonna take less than 100 per month, right? Not 50 not, but a bit more than 50, but less than 100. So anyway, all that to say that now we don't have pollution linked to the ships anymore. We still have pollutions for my trucks. We still have some air pollution, in particular over here. I am, not this one. I'm sending some carbon dioxide into the atmosphere from time to time. So there is definitely some there. Okay, this has been built, so let me show you quickly how you do this. You click on the actual ship, not on the cargo depot. You click on the ship, and at the bottom here, you will see this arrow with heavy oil and hydrogen. You select hydrogen, I've already done that, but you can do it like this. And then you do need to click on this button over here, where it's going to cost you a bit of resource. In this case, you can see 180 of electronics tier 1, 180 of steel, and it's going to then, bring a new ship. It's a ship that's going to be based basically on hydrogen instead of the diesel. So yeah, that was, the first big thing we're doing here that is not, about energy per se. The second thing we're doing there is we're making sure that this is a 100% kind of closed loop sustainable production. What do I mean by this? Well, if we look at my fast breeder reactor, it has 2 or 3 inputs. It has the water, the core fuel, and the blanket fuel. Well, all of these are produced here. We're producing enough of all of them. No, sorry, not just here, There's also a bit there and a bit there. So that's why I said it was huge. But everything is produced on site. You know, we don't need anything else. The only thing we need is a bit of uranium over here, right? That's the only thing we need to bring. Everything else is made on site. So I'm sort of, if you wish, recycling the water, for example. We are also recycling the core fuel spent into new core fuel. We are remaking from time to time some blanket fuel. So all of those things, right, are made on site. I'm gonna go, you know, one by one. I'm gonna explain. But yeah, this is a really cool, you know, blueprint that I've made, and I'll share it, of course, on my Discord community. Look at it. You can see we're talking about 17,000 construction part tier 4, 16,000 tier 3, 5,000 tier 2, 1,500 tier 1. So just this is huge. Then on top of this, you have almost 5,000 rubber, more than 6,000 steel, almost 5,000 concrete slab, 13,000 electronics, 900 electronics tier 3, and 900 titanium alloy. So this is a completely astronomical cost, to be honest, but it's working, it's working. So I'm going to go one by one, starting with, you know, the fast breeder reactor. As I said, it is taking three things. And what's important is, like I mentioned in the previous episode, the enrichment at the bottom. This is fine if it gets full, but definitely you're gonna want to use it to make what I'm doing here. So you need water and you need core fuel. This is going to then create steam super and some core fuel spent. Now, how did I first create some core fuel? I showed it in the last episode, but to recap, what we did is we're taking our plutonium with a bit of salt and creating some core fuel. We actually did that in this one here, which I've started to delete. As you can see, we have deleted part of it because it's almost empty. Actually, maybe it is empty. Yeah, this one is empty too now. You know, it doesn't have enough MOX or rod to restart. But when it was working, right, it was creating some spent fuel. We were sending the spent fuel over here. That was creating some plutonium. The plutonium with some salt was creating core fuel. So this is how we kind of started the system, right? But then the system will need to continue working with more core fuel. So how do we do it? Well, we recycle the core fuel spent. This is what you can see over here. So we're sending, I think it's not that one, it's one of these here. Let's see, it's the one at the bottom, I think. No, yeah, that's the one at the bottom here, core fuel spent. And actually, I think this is full. So let's start the third one. And that makes sense because I started actually this third fast breeder reactor. So we need, you know, it's 1-to-1 because this is 16, right? And 16 is what we're producing when this is working at full speed. So we have this, that's going to take some acid, some molten glass and steel to get us back some core fuel and also create a bit of fission product. Now, for the molten glass, you know, this is made on site over here. I showed it in the last episode using the broken glass and graphite and creating just a bit of pollution. So we'll have to take care of that at the end. But, you know, this is kind of the most complex production you need to bring. Steel and acid, pretty easy. On the other hand, what you can hopefully see already is that there's a bit of loss, right? We're taking 16, we're only getting 12 back, right? So if we go back here, we had 16, we created 16 core fuel spent, but we're only gonna get 12 back. So we need 4 more. So how do we get 4 more? We get 4 more with this production over here, which is enrichment plant of the blanket fuel enrich. So again, if we go back over here, I'm taking blanket fuel and I'm enriching them every time, you know, this recipe is happening. So with that, we're creating blanket fuel enrich. We're creating 16, all right? So that means here, 2 of these building. So 2 of these, that means it's gonna create 2 core fuel times 2, that's 4. That is exactly what we need, right? Which is why I was saying this is, once you've kicked it off, it should work perfectly as a closed loop, right? You should have always enough. So that's what we've done over here, right? Again, working, I feel, perfectly for the core fuel spent. Now, one thing though is that while we're making here this production, we are actually losing a bit of blanket fuel, because we put 8 in, we only get 6 back. So we're gonna need to recreate some, and this is what's happening on this side. We're gonna need to recreate some blanket fuel. There is a couple of ways to do it, and I could potentially have used this recipe here because I had, I don't know, 10,000 tons of depleted uranium by now. But the problem with this is that it will stop. At some point, I won't have any depleted uranium. You could say it is gonna be in 10,000 years, but still, I don't like knowing that at some point I won't have any and this will stop. So instead, I went for the sustainable recipe. The sustainable recipe is this one here, right? Where we're gonna take some yellow cake and some salt to make this blanket fuel. So the salt, easy, we're actually making it on site over here, where we have, the brine to make salt, or if this is empty, we have the seawater to make some salt. So this is my new salt production, if you wish. So we're making the salt on site, and then obviously we're gonna make the yellow cake also on site. There is a small reserve here so that I can put a warning, right? And most importantly, we have all of these buildings here. It is 14 to be precise. That is going to create this yellow cake. It's gonna take some uranium ore powder and some acid again, and it's also going to create some toxic slurry. So let's start with the uranium ore powder. It comes just from here, from next to it, where we taking the uranium ore, crushing it into a crusher large. So obviously I need quite a few of them, 7. It's 7, 14, 7, right? That's the ratios. And that's pretty much it. So that means we need the uranium ore, right? Which will come from here. For now, this is still linked to the mine. It's still linked to the mine, but in the future, we can change it and move it to the contract. This will actually be probably one of the last contract we do, like this one at the bottom over here. Now, if this whole thing is working at 100%, like all 6 of these are working at 100%, we're gonna need quite a bit, but one like this will be enough. It will be enough, it's just we're gonna need quite a bit per minute of uranium. So that's what's happening over here, right? And this is how we make sure that the loss of blanket fuel here doesn't happen. We don't lose anything. So what's left? Well, what's left is the water. How do we make sure we get back the water? Well, we need to make sure that with the steam super, we get back enough water for it. So what we're gonna do is, as I said, there's a couple of places we're gonna use the steam super. One is here, where we are actually using even more water and this steam super to create some hydrogen, oxygen, and some steam depleted. But thanks to this steam depleted here, we're gonna be able to also create water, right? And it's actually a surplus, because you take 24 of steam depleted, you get 33 of water. So this is actually what's happening here. And by the way, what I've done is there is sort of 2 blocks. This is a block number 1, and then you have block number 2 there. Block number 1 is linked to this block here. Block number 2 is linked to that block there. And in terms of the steam, each block here requires basically 1 fast breeder reactor. So this 1 fast breeder reactor is right now almost dedicated to this production here. But again, this is a huge production of hydrogen, of oxygen, and even of water. So this is, sometimes using a lot of steam super, but at least it's water positive. It's not gonna require water. For most of the other ones, what we're gonna do is send them here. And again, this is all linked. You can see here we have 6 pipes, right? Each of these pipes is linked to one of the reactors, and then each of these pipes then is linked to 2 lines like this. Then those lines are linked to each line there. So, everything is organized kind of one-to-one. And the idea here is, of course, we're gonna take the steam super, transform it into a lot of mechanical power, which means we get electricity and also get steam high. And the steam high will continue on these pipes over here. There is a small pipe balancer there because I actually want to make sure we send a bit of steam on these pipes there to be used for some of the other productions. For example, my refineries over here, or the paper production there. Actually, I don't think I connected it to the paper. I think the paper is still linked to this boiler electric, but that's the idea, is to send some steam also for the rest. But then all of the steam that's left, right, we can send into high pressure turbine to get even more mechanical power and therefore even more energy, to then get a bit of steam low, which we send into this low pressure turbine to get even more electricity and power and get steam depleted. Then the steam depleted will arrive here. It has a pipe balancer to say first go over here, all right? But if for some reason this is full, you can go into the atmosphere, right? Because that way I know that this will never stop creating electricity. But before we want to, send it to the atmosphere, we obviously want to use it, which is why all of these are for. They are thermal desalinators, right, to create again out of the steam depleted some water and a bit of brine, by the way, too. So the water will then go back here into feeding these. And if you remember, again, kind of the steam here, we're creating more water than steam. So yes, there is a bit of steam that we're using for some other purposes, but as long as there's quite a bit of steam that goes here, we're gonna be water positive. Now, just in case we're not water positive, I am still bringing some water from this huge water production over here, which, by the way, we will also connect to the steam super. I've started to connect a couple there. So we're gonna also make that a super production of water, because now for 6 steam, you're creating 72 water. So this one is gonna be super, super water positive, all right? And that way, this is going to help, obviously, with all of the farms, with the water that we need in other places. And again, there is also to make sure that here there is enough water. There is a priority, but it's not the priority, right? It's just, if this is empty, please send a bit of water. Now, of course, to make those things happen, like both these guys and those ones, we need some sea water. So that's what's happening over here. You can see seawater pumps, and we need to make sure we can drop some brine if our brine is full. But first, we're definitely going to send the brine there and use it in different places. Like, for example, use it over here, but also use it in other places like this one there. Because when we are talking here about the settling tank for yellow cake, I did say there was some toxic slurry, but I didn't show it to you. So let me show it to you that, this slurry will go over here, right? And we'll go into those wastewater treatments with a bit of brine. So that's why I remembered. And filter media, making water and slag. The slag will go directly next door into the cargo ship. The water goes back into the system. So that's what's happening over here. And that's pretty much it. The only thing I didn't show you is here. I was pretty proud of my organization. Managed to have all 6 in a nice line, but more importantly, all of those 6 are creating fission product. And if this is working full speed, they're actually creating quite a lot. So you need multiple of these radioactive waste storage to make sure that it's not full. And then all of these, after 100 years, right, they're going to output into this belt there to create to be transformed back into recyclables. And then that means, I guess, we're gonna remake some steel or iron scraps. We're gonna remake some broken glass scrap, and that's pretty much it, right? I don't think we're using gold, so yeah, that's the only scraps we're getting from that one. But that is, and so now we have already stopped. I have already stopped the old nuclear reactor that used to be there. I'm now focusing on treating the spent MOX that was over there. There used to be 2 of these. We've already treated 1 of them thanks to this production there, which, by the way, is creating a bit more blanket fuel for me, which is kind of free blanket fuel, so I'm not gonna say no to it. But the good thing is, in a couple of 100 years, we can delete this whole thing. Similarly, we're doing the same here, right? Where we are transforming into, oh, why are we low on? Oh, we're low on broken glass. Okay, but it comes directly, so from time to time it comes. Okay, so anyway, we're also emptying these guys, right? And then last but not least, as we just saw, this one is now empty. So we can basically delete this whole thing there. We do need to make sure we have, you know, production of salt because we need salt. We've done that. We need a production of chlorine. I don't think we've done that. So I need to create a bit of chlorine before, you know, this is empty. There is a warning there, so that's fine. But apart from that, yeah, we can really delete everything over here, make some space for spoiler alert. I think it's going to be the gold. Gold is the other contract we haven't done yet. And the other thing I did want you to talk about is for all of these hydrogen, which by the way, you can see this is starting to go up. It took a bit of time to get all of these guys full because I transform all of these from diesel to hydrogen in one go. But now that they're full, I think this is going to get full pretty quickly. So yes, the other thing I did want you to talk about is now that we're not using diesel, do we even need this? I mean, of course, right now we still need it because I have quite a bit, of trucks still on the map. So they need, for now, diesel. In the future, we can also use hydrogen for them. But apart from that, I don't really have a usage for this diesel. I mean, sure, we could potentially use it over here to make some rubber, right? Or you can actually decide to burn it into electricity. It's not very kind of efficient, but you can if you want. You could also potentially transform it back into naphtha and fuel gas, but it almost feels like, we should have a game without diesel at all. I think that's going to be the goal. But it's not as simple as it sounds, because there are a couple of things that were created by this as byproduct. For example, fuel gas, right? We are creating a lot of fuel gas, both here in distillation stage 3, but also here in the cracking unit of the naphtha. So we're creating fuel gas, and then we're using this fuel gas in particular for the statute of maintenance, right? And this is, I think, there's a couple of production, but this is one of the main one where you have to use fuel gas. Because look, I mean, these ones we don't care. Here to make cement, you can use hydrogen. To make alumina, you can also use hydrogen. This, you can also use hydrogen. And so there is only two production basically. I think this one, the chemical fuel, the only way to make it is with fuel gas. And then second is obviously the statute of maintenance. So we don't need that much fuel gas. And we do create some fuel gas here if we have more food, right, in the whole food system. If we have more food, at the end it gets digested. So we are creating a bit there, but it's not, it's not a permanent production. Good thing is we can actually make it a permanent production with this chemical plant over here. All right, take a bit of hydrogen, take some carbon dioxide, which is a good thing because I feel like I have too much carbon dioxide. So I'm gonna need to find ways to take care of it if I want to have zero pollution. So with this, right, we're creating the fuel gas. This is the first one, but it's not the only one, right? We have also the rubber over here. We need a way to create it. We have over here the polymerization plant for the plastic. We need a way to create it. So there is a couple of those production. I'm gonna need to find, kind of a different way to do it if you wish. But then potentially we can just delete this whole thing there and not have any diesel at all on the map. So that's gonna be pretty cool to try to get there in maybe the next episode. There's also still a couple of research that we need to do. We haven't done some of the productions like luxury goods, offices, consumer electronics. We've done the fast breeder reactor and we have now tons of electricity capacity. So I'm not worried about electricity anymore. It did take me many hours to make this. So please smash the like button. Please share comments below, what do you think about it? Anything I missed, anything you did agree with? I'd love to hear. I'm always learning in this game, which is an amazing one. So thank you for watching. Smash the like button. See you next time.